Everyone always says nothing good happens after midnight. I used to believe that. Until one New Year's Eve when my straight best friend kissed me before the countdown even hit 0. But that wasn't the part that messed me up. It was everything that happened after. Let me rewind a bit. Jake and I met in high school. Total opposites. He was varsity everything, football, track. The kind of guy teachers loved and girls followed around like puppies. I was the quiet kid in a P-Lit, with a smart mouth and a secret Tumblr blog full of angsty poetry. The fact that we became best friends still confuses people. Jake never once made me feel weird about being gay. When I came out sophomore year, he was the first person I told. He didn't flinch, just said cool. Still kicking your ass in FIFA though, and that was that. He dated girls, I dated guys, and life moved on. We were roommates in college, then rented a small place together in the city after graduation. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. And then came New Year's. We were at our friend Lila's house party. Nothing crazy, maybe 30 people, most of them drunk before 11. Jake had already thrown back a few whiskeys and was leaning hard into his charming golden retriever energy. I was sticking the beer, playing designated driver, mostly watching him work the room like he owned it. He looked good. Way too good, honestly. Black sweater that hugged just enough, scruffy jawline, hair a little too messy to be accidental. I hated that I noticed, but whatever. I'd trained myself not to linger on those thoughts. Jake was straight. Had always been straight. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Around 11:45, the party migrated to the backyard for the fireworks. Lila's family lived up on a hill, so the view of the skyline was perfect. Cold air, champagne popping, couples pairing off for midnight. I stood near the fire pit, hands in my coat pockets, trying not to overthink how many people were kissing someone tonight. Jake appeared next to me, cheeks pink from the cold or the booze. Maybe both. He nudged me. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "You?" He shrugged, took a swig from his drink. "Wish I had someone to kiss at midnight." I raised an eyebrow. "You? Single for once? The world must be ending." He chuckled, then went quiet for a beat. His voice dropped, not joking anymore. "You ever think about it?" "Think about what?" "Kissing a guy." I stared at him. What?" Jake didn't look at me. He was watching the sky like it might answer for him. "Like, just once. Wonder what it's like." "You've been drinking." He nodded. "Yeah, but I mean it." I couldn't tell if this was a bit or something deeper. The air between us tightened. My heartbeat felt too loud. I tried to keep my voice level. "Jake, you're straight." He turned to me then, eyes darker than usual, serious in a way that made my skin prickle. "Am I?" That was when the countdown started. 10! The crowd's voices grew louder. Jake stepped closer. So close I could smell the whiskey and mint on his breath. He leaned in. 9! I didn't move. 8! 7! His hand found my sleeve. 6! I felt him hesitate. 5! And then 4! He kissed me. Quick, soft, hesitant. But it happened. 3! 2! 1! Everyone else screamed and cheered and laughed, and all I could hear was the ringing silence between us. He pulled back like nothing happened, like the world hadn't just tilted 30 degrees sideways under my feet. Jake stood there, eyes flicking down like he was already regretting it, then back up like he was waiting for me to say something. Anything. But I couldn't. My brain was lagging behind, still trying to process the fact that my best friend, my very straight best friend, had just kissed me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Fireworks were exploding behind us, painting the sky in gold and green. People were cheering, hugging, kissing. But in that exact moment, I felt like we were sealed off from it all, like time had frozen around the two of us. Then Jake stepped back. "I'm gonna get another drink," he muttered, without meeting my eyes. And just like that, he disappeared into the house. I stood there still tasting his lips, my heart racing and my stomach in knots. It wasn't like I'd never thought about it. Kissing him. I'd had my moments, early on in our friendship, when I'd crush on him a little too hard, stare a little too long. But I buried those feelings fast, out of survival. Jake was the one person in my life I didn't want to lose. I learned to keep it friendly, safe, platonic. Now he'd crossed the line I'd been so careful not to even approach. And I didn't know what the hell to do with that. Eventually, I went back inside, hoping I'd catch him in the kitchen so we could talk. Or so I could at least see his face, read something real in his expression. But he wasn't there. He wasn't in the living room either. I checked the bathroom, then the hallway near the coat closet. Gone. I texted him. "Where'd you go?" No reply. The party wound down sometime around 1:30, and I stayed out of obligation, pretending to laugh at people's drunken resolutions and letting Lila rope me into a round of karaoke. But my thoughts were stuck on Jake. That kiss. His voice right before it. Am I? At 2:12 a.m., I called an Uber. We lived together. I figured he'd be at the apartment by the time I got back. But when I walked in, the lights were off and his room was empty. His bed was made. His shoes were still by the door, untouched, meaning he never came home. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, debating whether to call him again. I didn't. I just stared at the last message I sent. Nothing. Around 3 a.m., I finally climbed into bed, fully clothed, and lay there staring at the ceiling. That night replayed on a loop. The kiss. The way his lips had hesitated. How warm he felt that close. The split second before he pulled away when, I swear to God, he almost leaned in again. In his eyes, he looked scared, or maybe confused, or both. The next morning, or technically the next afternoon, I woke up to an empty apartment and no sign of Jake. His bedroom door was still open. His keys were gone. The only clue was a text he'd sent at 8:46 a.m. "Jake, gonna crash at Collins. Talk later." That was it. No explanation, no mention of the kiss, no "Happy New Year." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I threw my phone on the nightstand and went to brush my teeth, like maybe pretending everything was normal would somehow make it true. The thing is, I didn't know what I wanted from him. An apology? A confession? A clarification? I wasn't even sure what I felt. That kiss had lit something up in me, sure, but it also cracked something open. A wall I'd carefully built. I didn't want to read too much into one drunken mistake, but I also couldn't forget the way he said it. Am I? The next 3 days were radio silence. Jake stayed at Colin's place. We'd been best friends for nearly 8 years, and we'd never gone that long without talking unless one of us was out of the country. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd snatch it up, hoping it was him. It never was. On the 4th day, I came home from work and found him sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. Hair wet from the shower, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, a bowl of cereal in his lap, watching reruns of Parks and Rec. I stood in the doorway like I was staring at a ghost. He looked up, blinked. Hey, I said, arms crossed. "That's what you've got?" He paused the show and set the bowl on the coffee table. "Look, No, I cut him off, walking over to the other side of the living room. "You don't get to show up after days of avoiding me and start with, 'Hey?'" Jake ran a hand through his hair, eyes tired. "I know. I'm sorry. You kissed me." "I know. Do you remember doing it?" He nodded, eyes locked on mine. "Yeah, I remember." That hit me harder than I expected. I took a breath. "Why?" Jake opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked down at his hands. "Because I wanted to, and I was drunk, and I didn't know how else to say it." "Say what?" He looked back up at me, face raw. "That I think I might not be as straight as I've always said I was." The words hung there, dense and impossible to ignore. I sank onto the armchair opposite him, hands suddenly cold. "Since when?" Jake exhaled. "I don't know. It's not like I've been hiding some big secret. I've just never questioned it. I liked girls, I dated girls. I did what everyone expected. But lately I've been thinking about things I didn't used to. And that night..." He paused, eyes flicking toward me. I looked at you, and I realized I wanted to know what it felt like. To kiss you. To be with you. And I panicked. Is that why you disappeared? Yeah, he said. I freaked out. I didn't know what to say to you. I was quiet for a long moment. So what now? Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I don't know. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. But I'm not pretending it didn't happen either. And if you'll let me, I want to talk about it. I want to figure this out. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw not the confident, easygoing Jake that everyone else knew, but someone terrified. Someone stepping out onto unfamiliar ground. I didn't know where this was going. But I knew I wasn't ready to walk away from it. Not yet. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to reach for him, to tell him it was okay, that we could figure it out together. But another part, the part of me that had built walls around this exact moment, was frozen. Not with fear, exactly, but with the weight of not knowing what this meant. What does figure this out mean to you? I asked carefully. Jake rubbed his palms on his jeans like he was grounding himself. I don't know yet. I'm not asking you to be patient with me forever or wait around while I have an identity crisis. I can't stop thinking about that night. He paused, then added, and not in a regret kind of way. That made something in my chest flicker. Something warm, but hesitant. I leaned back in the chair. So you're not straight. You're questioning? He nodded. Yeah, I think so. I've been questioning for a while, I just didn't tell anyone. You were the only person I felt safe around, which makes this whole thing more complicated. No shit, I muttered, but there was no bite in it. Jake gave a small, sheepish smile. Fair. We sat in silence for a while, not awkward, but dense, like every breath was carrying the weight of something new between us. Finally, I asked, have you ever been with a guy? Jake shook his head. No, just kissed you. That was the first and only. I nodded slowly. You weren't drunk enough to forget it. No, he said, voice quiet but steady. And I haven't stopped thinking about it since. That did something to me. Opened a door I hadn't even realized I'd locked. I shifted on the chair, letting my guard down a little. I don't want to be some experiment for you, I said. I've done that before. It doesn't end well. Jake's expression darkened slightly, not out of anger, but guilt. I know, and I'm not asking you to be that. I'm not here to screw with your head. I'm just being honest. That's all I can be right now. Okay, I said, and it surprised both of us. He looked up sharply. Okay? I nodded. Yeah, okay. I don't know what this is, or where it's going, but we talk. We take it slow. No expectations. Just honesty. A visible weight lifted off his shoulders. Yeah, that's all I want. He stood up slowly, then hovered for a second like he wasn't sure if he should hug me or just go back to his room. I beat him to it, stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him before he could overthink it. He hugged me back hard. Familiar, but different now. His chin rested lightly on my shoulder, and I felt him exhale into the crook of my neck. I miss this, he whispered. You mean us being in the same room and not pretending we're fine? He chuckled against my neck. Exactly that. We pulled apart, and I swore there was a different look in his eyes now. Not fear, not confusion. Something like relief. Or maybe hope. After that, things didn't magically get easier, but they weren't worse either. We started small, talking more. Real talking, not just about TV or what to eat. Jake was quieter than usual. More thoughtful. He'd ask questions, but never in a teach me kind of way. More like he was trying to listen to himself through me. We didn't talk about the kiss for a while. It just sat between us. Acknowledged, but not revisited. At least not verbally. But there were moments, like when we were making coffee and his fingers brushed mine, and neither of us moved away, or when we sat on the couch to watch a movie, and he slowly inched closer until our shoulders were touching. It was in the small silences that everything changed. One night, maybe 2 weeks after New Year's, we were sitting on the floor playing cards, half a bottle of red wine between us. Jake had his back to the couch, one leg stretched out, his socked foot brushing mine occasionally. I was trying to focus on the game, but his laugh kept pulling my attention. That easy, half-drunk laugh he only did when he was truly relaxed. I caught him looking at me a little too long, and he didn't look away this time. "What?" I asked, smiling despite myself. He shrugged. "You ever think about it?" I tilted my head. "About what?" He looked down, fidgeted with the card, then back up. What it would be like if this wasn't so complicated. I was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes," Jake nodded. "Me too." The next day, he kissed me again. We were in the kitchen, early morning light cutting across the tile, both of us in sweats and half asleep. I was pouring coffee. He came up behind me, leaned over my shoulder like he was going to grab a mug, and instead his lips brushed my cheek. Not an accident, not a question, just soft, certain. He pulled back like he was waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I turned and kissed him back. And just like that, the ground shifted again. After that second kiss, things didn't explode into some sweeping romance. There was no music swelling in the background, no dramatic confessions. It was just Jake standing in our kitchen with sleep still in his eyes and his lips parted like he wasn't sure if I was going to hit him or kiss him again. So I kissed him again, not out of impulse, not to test the waters. I kissed him because I wanted to, and for the first time I could finally admit it, out loud, in my head, in the way I leaned in. I wanted him. He kissed me back with this kind of careful hesitation, like he was still figuring out what to do with himself, but he didn't pull away. He didn't look confused or overwhelmed. He looked peaceful. It lasted maybe 4 seconds. Then he stepped back, exhaled like he'd just surfaced from underwater, and said, "Okay, that happened." I smiled a little. "Yep." "You're not freaking out?" "Should I be?" He shook his head slowly. "No. I mean, maybe? I don't know. I thought I'd feel more weird. Do you?" He thought for a second, then said, "No, it actually feels good." We didn't talk more about it that morning. He took his coffee and went to his room. I let him. It wasn't avoidance. It felt like space, and space was okay. That's how it went for a while. These little moments spread out over days, like when he came home from work one night and found me watching TV. He just sat down, rested his arm along the back of the couch, and didn't move when I leaned into him. Or when he lingered in the doorway of my room like he had something to say, then just mumbled, "Sleep well," before quietly closing the door behind him. But then there were the other moments, the complicated ones. The first time he asked if I was seeing anyone else, it was a casual throwaway question. "You talking to anyone?" he asked, scrolling through his phone without looking up. "No," I said. "Why?" he shrugged. "Just wondering." I didn't push, and he didn't explain, but I saw the way his thumb stopped moving over the screen. That weekend, we had friends over for game night. Just the usual crew. Lila, Colin, Andre. Everyone was drinking and laughing, but I could feel Jake watching me. Every time I laughed too hard at something Colin said, or leaned a little too close to Andre while passing snacks, I felt it. Jealousy wasn't new to me, but seeing it on Jake, that was new. That night, after everyone left and we were cleaning up, he said, "You like Colin?" I froze, holding an empty wine glass in one hand. "Where's this coming from?" he shrugged. "Just seemed like you were vibing with him." I raised an eyebrow. "I've known him for 4 years. If I was into him, don't you think something would have happened by now?" Jake looked away, then back again. "Yeah, I guess." "You jealous?" He didn't answer right away. Just kept drying the same dish he'd already wiped twice. Finally, he said, "Maybe a little." That was the moment I realized something important. Jake wasn't just curious anymore. He was invested. I walked over, took the dish from his hands, and set it down. He looked up at me, a little lost. "You don't get to act jealous if we're not actually a thing," I said gently. "So what are we?" He opened his mouth, then shut it again, then tried once more. "I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out." "That's fair," I said, "but if you want to explore this with me, then we talk about it. No more silence, no disappearing, no pretending." Jake nodded slowly. Okay, yeah, you're right. I could see the fear behind his eyes, but also the trust. Like he was choosing me, even if he didn't fully understand what that meant yet. Then start here, I said. Tell me what you want. I want to keep being with you, he said, voice low. I don't know what that looks like yet, and I'm not ready to label it. But I don't want you with anyone else. That's a relationship, I said. He gave a small laugh. I guess it is. I stepped closer. Jake, you can't just want me when no one else is around. You can't pull me close in the dark and then ignore me in daylight. His expression softened. I won't. I promise. I'm figuring this out with you. Not on my own. That promise, it mattered. From then on, things shifted. Jake wasn't just curious anymore. He was intentional. He'd text me from work to ask how my day was going. He started offering to cook dinner. Badly, but it was sweet. And he stopped flinching when our hands touched. In fact, he started reaching for me first. One night, we were lying on the couch, some terrible reality show playing in the background. I was half asleep, head on his chest, and he whispered, I used to think being with a guy would feel different. Different how? I murmured. Like I'd be a different person. Like something would change about who I am. And? He paused. I don't feel different. I just feel more myself. That made my throat tighten in a way I didn't expect. I tilted my head up to look at him. I'm really glad you kissed me, he smiled. Me too. By mid-January, Jake had quietly become part of my day in ways I hadn't realized were missing before. He started waking me up with coffee on the mornings he didn't work early shifts. He'd leave stupid Post-it notes on the fridge with things like, don't forget to eat real food, not chips. Love, your mother. Or, you looked hot in that sweater yesterday. Little things. Subtle shifts. But they meant something. The biggest change, though? He stopped hiding it. It wasn't like he came out and made a grand announcement. I don't even think he was ready to call himself anything yet. But when we'd go out with friends, he didn't shy away from standing close. He'd rest his hand on the small of my back or lean his knee into mine under the bar table. Nothing dramatic, just quiet signs that this wasn't a phase or a joke. That he was choosing this, choosing me. Still, I'd be lying if I said everything was easy. We hadn't talked about what we were telling people, or if we were telling them anything. And that started to matter more than I expected. One Saturday night, a group of us went out to a bar to celebrate Andre's birthday. Jake and I rode there together, joking and laughing in the car. His playlist was playing low in the background, and at a red light, he reached over and took my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. But once we got inside, things changed. The second we walked through the doors, his body language shifted. He didn't pull away, not exactly, but he stopped looking at me, stopped smiling the way he had 5 minutes earlier. He kept his distance, like we were just roommates again. And yeah, I noticed. Fast. I spent most of the night nursing a drink and pretending it didn't bother me. But every time I glanced across the table at Jake, he was laughing at something Lila said, or clinking beers with Colin like nothing had shifted. By the time midnight hit, I'd had enough. I stepped outside into the cold air, pulling my coat tighter. The sidewalk was slick with leftover snow, and my breath came out in quick little clouds. A minute later, I heard footsteps behind me. Jake. Hey, he said, voice soft. I didn't turn around. Hey, you okay? I shrugged. I'm great. He stepped closer. You're mad. Not mad, I said. Just disappointed. In me? I finally turned. Jake, when we're home, you're all in. But when we're out, you act like none of it's real. And I get it. I really do. This is all new for you, but it's not new for me. And I can't go back to pretending. He looked down at his shoes. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. Well, you did. He exhaled, then ran a hand through his hair. A nervous tick I'd seen 1,000 times. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I just walked in and panicked. Panic doesn't excuse making someone feel invisible. I know, he said quickly. You're right, and I'm sorry. He stepped in front of me, reaching out but stopping short of touching. I'm still figuring myself out, he said. But I know I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to hurt you by accident just because I'm still scared. His voice cracked a little on that last part, and it softened something in me. Jake, he stepped closer. I'm not asking you to fix me. I just I want to do better. For you. For us. There was a long silence, and then I said, okay, but I need honesty. Even if it's messy. Even if it's hard. You've got it, he said. I promise. Then he looked around the empty sidewalk, the cars passing in the distance. If I kissed you right now, would it be okay? I nodded. He stepped into me like he meant it this time. No hesitation, no questioning. Just him. Warm and real, lips finding mine like he'd been waiting his whole life to get this right. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. What? I asked. Feels less scary now, he said. Actually feels pretty damn good. We walked back inside together. This time, he didn't keep his distance. He slid his hand into mine right in front of everyone, and if anyone noticed, they didn't say a word. But Lila gave me a look. Not surprised, not shocked, just knowing. Later, she cornered me in the hallway near the restrooms and said, "Took him long enough." I blinked. "You knew?" She laughed. "Please, I've known since junior year." That night, Jake and I walked home instead of taking a cab. The streets were mostly empty, just our footsteps echoing against buildings, and a gentle hum of traffic in the distance. "Want to stop pretending I don't sleep better in your bed?" he asked with a grin. I laughed. "Pretty sure that secret's out." "Good," he said, "because I like waking up next to you." We didn't define anything that night. No official labels. No dramatic Facebook status change. Just quiet steps forward, toward whatever we were becoming. And for the first time, I didn't need it all figured out. Because what we had was real. Even if it started with a kiss on New Year's Eve. It's strange how quickly something new can start to feel normal. By the time February rolled around, Jake and I were quietly falling into a rhythm that didn't feel uncertain anymore. It just was. We were still us, cracking dumb jokes at each other's expense, fighting over who got the last of the oat milk, watching trash TV way too late. But there was an ease to it now. A layer of comfort that hadn't existed before. I could lean into him without wondering if I was crossing a line. He'd pull me close while we cooked, resting his chin on my shoulder like he'd been doing it for years. But we weren't out, not in the official sense. A few of our close friends knew. Lila definitely did. Colin probably suspected. Andre, maybe not. Our parents didn't. Jake's coworkers didn't. And I was okay with that. To a point. I didn't need to post pictures of us kissing on Instagram. But I also didn't want to go backward, pretending in certain rooms that I was just the roommate. And Jake? He was trying. Really trying. But there were still moments when I could feel him second-guessing everything. Like he'd reach for my hand, then hesitate. Or introduce me as his friend when we ran into someone he knew. It stung. Not enough to cause a fight. Just enough to keep the air slightly tense. One night, we were curled up on the couch, half watching a movie, when I asked, "Do you think you'll ever be ready to tell your family?" Jake's eyes didn't leave the screen. "Eventually. I don't know how." "Want help?" He turned to look at me. "You do that?" "I do a lot more than that," I said, my tone softer now. "But only if you want it." He looked away again, quiet. Then, "I'm scared." That wasn't news, but hearing him say it out loud hit different. "I get it," I said. "It's a lot. But you're not alone." He didn't answer right away, but he nodded, just once. Then he reached over, linked his fingers with mine, and rested our hands on his chest. That was the night I knew I was falling for him. Not the crush kind of falling. Not the infatuation. This was deeper. It was the realization that his quiet fears and his late-night apologies, his messy feelings, and his slow progress. I wanted all of it. I wanted him. And that terrified me a little. Because I'd been here before. With someone who wasn't sure. Someone who liked the idea of being with me, but not the reality of what that meant out loud. In the world. I'd promised myself I'd never put myself in that position again. Jake wasn't that guy. I knew that. But the echoes of past disappointments still had a voice in my head, whispering doubts when things got too quiet. The tension finally broke a few nights later, during dinner with a couple of Jake's old college friends. He'd invited them over to our place, a casual double date kind of, though the other couple didn't know about us. It wasn't weird at first. Jake was playing host, pouring drinks, cracking jokes. I sat across from him, trying not to read into every glance he threw my way. Then one of his friends, some finance bro named Tyler, said, "So, no girls in the picture, Jake? Still playing the field?" And Jake hesitated just for a second. Then he laughed. "Nah, man. No girls." The way he said it. It wasn't just dodging the question. It was careful. Measured. I felt something cold settle in my chest. After they left, I was quiet. I cleaned up in silence, stacking plates, running the sink, pretending it didn't matter. Jake noticed. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, not looking at him. He stepped closer. "Talk to me." I turned off the water, finally meeting his eyes. "You had a chance to say something tonight, and you didn't," he sighed. I wasn't trying to lie. I just didn't want to get into it. "Jake, you don't have to explain yourself to everyone," I said. "But when you dodge stuff like that, it makes me feel like you're ashamed of me." He looked like I'd slapped him. "I'm not." "I know you're not," I said. "But sometimes it feels like you're ashamed of this, of us." He was quiet for a long beat. Then, softly, I'm not ashamed. I'm scared." "I know," I said. "But fear doesn't excuse erasing me." The silence between us wasn't angry. It was heavy. Jake stepped back, leaning against the counter. "I didn't expect this to be easy. I knew I'd screw it up sometimes. But I'm trying." "I know," I said, "and I'm still here. But I need you to meet me halfway." He nodded slowly. "I will." The next day, he posted a picture of us on Instagram. It wasn't much. Just us on the couch, my head on his shoulder, both of us laughing at something out of frame. But the caption read, "My favorite part of 2025 so far." That was it. No fireworks, no declarations. But it was something. A start. After the Instagram post, everything shifted. Not in some explosive, life-altering way, but in a quiet, undeniable one. Like a switch had been flipped inside Jake, and he finally stopped hiding from the world. Or maybe from himself. The comments rolled in slowly. Some from our close friends, heart emojis about damn times, one from Lila that just said, "Tell me everything immediately." There were a few that felt more cautious, people who hadn't known and were clearly trying to gauge whether it was a joke or something real. Jake didn't delete or dodge any of it. And that said more than any caption could. We didn't talk about it that night. We didn't need to. Instead, we curled up on the couch, ordered pizza, and watched a bad action movie with too many explosions and not enough plot. Jake kept glancing at his phone when it buzzed with notifications, but he didn't look worried. Just thoughtful. I leaned against his shoulder. "Regretting it yet?" He shook his head. "Feels good, like I stopped holding my breath." I smiled, but I didn't say what I was really thinking. That I'd been holding mine, too. For weeks. Maybe longer. That weekend, we went out for brunch together. Just the two of us. And for the first time, Jake reached across the table and took my hand without flinching. Without checking if anyone was watching. I noticed the older woman sitting at the booth across from us glance our way. Jake noticed too. He didn't let go. After that, it became easier. He stopped calling me his roommate in public. He stopped pulling away when someone bumped into us on the street and saw us holding hands. He started referring to our apartment as our place instead of my place. Small things. But they added up. And yet, there were still parts of the puzzle we hadn't touched, namely, his family. He didn't talk about them much, and I didn't push. I knew from our college years that Jake's dad was the kind of man who called anything emotional soft and used the word gay as a punchline more often than not. His mom was quieter, more reserved, the type who went along to keep the peace. So when Jake told me, out of nowhere one night while we were brushing our teeth, "I think I'm ready to tell my mom," I almost dropped my toothbrush. "Seriously?" He nodded, foaming toothpaste at the corners of his mouth. "Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I want her to know. I want her to know about you." That last part hit me harder than I expected. I spit, rinsed, and leaned on the counter. "You don't have to rush." "I'm not," he said. But I don't want to keep pretending this part of my life doesn't exist. Not anymore. So he called her that weekend. I stayed in the bedroom, half listening, half anxious, hearing only one side of the conversation. His voice was calm, quieter than usual, measured. Yeah, Mom. I'm seeing someone. Yeah, it's a guy. A long pause. No, I'm not joking. Another pause. Then, softer. It's been a while. I didn't know how to tell you. I couldn't hear her response. But Jake nodded, said something like, I'm happy. And then, yeah, I'm serious. And then finally, his name's Evan. My name. That was the first time he said it out loud to her. When he hung up, he came into the room and just sat on the edge of the bed for a second, eyes distant. How'd it go? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. Better than I thought. Worse than I hoped. She didn't freak out? No. But she didn't say much either. I think she was in shock. I could hear it in her voice. I nodded. It'll take time. I know, he said. But I'm glad I told her. He looked up at me, eyes clear. I wanted you to know I'm not hiding anymore. And in that moment, I believed him. Later that night, he pulled me into bed, like he always did. But this time, he didn't say good night and roll over. He looked at me, eyes open, in the dark, and said, You know I love you, right? It caught me off guard. Not because I didn't feel it. I did, deeply, but because he'd never said it before. You what? I whispered. He smiled faintly. Don't make me say it twice. I leaned in, my voice barely audible. Say it again anyway. He kissed the corner of my mouth, then murmured, I love you. And just like that, everything I'd been holding back, the fear, the caution, the second-guessing, crumbled. I love you too, I said. It felt like we'd both waited years for that moment. And maybe we had. From the outside, our story probably didn't look like much. Two friends who got too close, kissed on New Year's, figured things out, no grand romantic gestures, no viral coming out video, just a slow, messy, honest unraveling of what we thought we knew about each other and ourselves. But to me, it was everything. It's funny. People always assume the start of a love story is the big moment, the kiss, the confession, the fireworks at midnight. But for me, it wasn't New Year's Eve. It wasn't even the night Jake told me he loved me. It was all the moments after. Like the morning I woke up and found him already in the kitchen, hair messy, hoodie on backward, burning pancakes because he was trying to surprise me. Or the first time we slow danced in our living room for no reason, just because a random sad song came on Spotify and he reached for my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Or the day he fixed my bike chain and pretended he was a mechanic, covered in grease, smudging it on my cheek just to make me laugh. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. It was just us. Over the next few months, we settled into our version of normal. Jake came out to his sister next. That went better. She cried, hugged him, and immediately added my number to her contacts with a little rainbow emoji. His mom came around, slowly asking questions and listening without judgment. His dad never called. Jake didn't talk about it much, and I didn't push. Some wounds you learn to work around, not fix. But I could see how much lighter he became when he stopped trying to be what everyone expected. He smiled more, slept better, started taking stupid risks, like singing in public or growing a garden on our tiny apartment balcony. He even started calling me his boyfriend. I'll never forget the first time he did it in front of someone else. We were at a street fair, getting tacos from a truck, and the girl taking our order asked if we wanted to pay separately. Jake just smiled and said, Nah, I got it. He's my boyfriend. It's my turn anyway. She barely blinked, just rang us up. But I felt it, that word, that weight. Later that night, he looked at me and said, That didn't freak you out, did it? I shook my head. Not even a little. He grinned. Good, 'cause I like saying it. Our friend group adjusted quickly. Lila started planning double dates. Colin started asking me if Jake had always been a softie under the frat boy energy. Andre came out to us a few weeks later, citing Jake's Instagram post as the moment he realized maybe he didn't have to keep hiding either. Turns out, when you stop pretending, it makes room for other people to do the same. We never made some formal declaration about moving in together. We were already living together. But the way our space changed told the story. 2 toothbrushes in the same cup. His hoodies in my closet. My books on his nightstand. A joint Spotify playlist for road trips. A slow, steady merging of lives. Some nights, we'd talk about how weird it all was. How he used to think he was straight. How I used to think I'd always love him quietly, from a distance. "I still don't know if I'm bi or what," he admitted once. "I just know I'm into you." I smiled at that. Good enough for me. By the time the next New Year's rolled around, we were in the same apartment, at a different party, surrounded by mostly the same people. But this time, there was no confusion, no secret, no hesitation. At 11:58 p.m., Jake found me on the balcony, just like the year before. Only this time, he kissed me before the countdown started. When people yelled, "Happy New Year!" he was still holding me. And I realized in that moment, the real beginning wasn't that night last year. It was every day that followed. Every risk, every doubt, every time he chose to stay. Some love stories start with a kiss. Ours started with a question, "Am I?" and ended with an answer neither of us expected.